Your Eminence, thank you very much for taking some time to speak to us here today.
Thank you.
You come all the way from Ethiopia, which is in Eastern Africa. It's a fascinating country. It's more than 90 million people in a relatively small land mass. And the Christian community is rather large. I think it's more than 50% of the country, of the population, is Christian, but only, I think, 1 or 2% is Catholic. So I'm very interested, what do you see as the role of the Catholic Church in Ethiopia and the influence of the Catholic community?
Thank you for having me on Salt and Light television network, and I'm happy to be here. And Ethiopia, as you mentioned, is a very old, ancient country, and in northeastern Africa. Well, by the way, it is also we call the cradle of humanity, because Lucy has been found there. And so your ancestors must have come from Ethiopia, but they went far away to Canada.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, and also during the time of King Solomon, Jews came to Ethiopia and they settled down there. And we had even a queen, a Jewish queen, who reigned for about 40 years or so in Ethiopia. And until recently, about 40 years ago, we had the black Jews in Ethiopia. Now they are mostly in Israel. They have been taken to Israel. Christianity came also during the Apostolic Age, when the Ethiopian eunuch was baptized.
The famous story in the Acts of the Apostles.
Famous story
yes.
in the Acts of the Apostles. And since then, Christianity has been inculturated very much in Ethiopia. So much so that you cannot distinguish between the culture and the religion of Ethiopia. In fact, the first bishop of Ethiopia, Saint Frumentius, or what we call Abba Salama, he was a Syrian, ordained by Saint Athanasius in the 4th century.
Wow.
And so it is a very old Christian country with roots in Syria and Jerusalem and Alexandria. And we have many monasteries, our own script, and many manuscripts, and many paintings, and many architecture, church architecture like the Lalibela churches and so on, the rock-hewn churches. And Islam also came during the time when the relatives of Prophet Muhammad were persecuted in Mecca. They came as refugees to Ethiopia. So Ethiopia has been a country of the major Abrahamic religions who lived peacefully, coexisted peacefully for a long time. And now it has grown, Ethiopia. It's 90 million. And they are saying now, after Nigeria, Ethiopia is going to be the second populous country. So far, it was Egypt. Ethiopia, as you mentioned, is now more than 62% Christian country. Let's say about 45% or so Orthodox Christians, about more than 40 million Orthodox Christians in Ethiopia. So after Russia, the biggest number of Christians Orthodox Christians are in Ethiopia. Then we have the Protestants and 1% Catholics. So about 62% we will be a Christian country. Muslims will be around 33%. That is the government statistics.
So when we think about the role that the church plays in a society like Ethiopia's, I mean, the Catholic community being 1%, obviously there's this interfaith element that you spoke about, but what do you see as the Catholic Church's role, unique role in this society?
The present role of the Catholic Church in the society is bridge making. So being small, you have an advantage. You are not a danger to anyone. Everybody looks at you and they want to share their aspirations with you. So the church is a bridge builder among the great faith and among the great peoples of Ethiopia, which comprise more than 80 ethnic and nationalities in Ethiopia. So we have many social activities, the Catholic Church, like schools and health institutions, social institutions, where we give service to all without any discrimination of faith or religion or ethnic background. So in fact, we are quite well appreciated by the people and the government for these services we give.
Yeah.
And for example, education, we were, the first one to start Catholic education in northern Ethiopia, modern education, I could say, around 1845. And then after the Second World War, we started together with the government of His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie the first Catholic, not Catholic, state university in Addis Abeba, together with Canadian Jesuits. So you see, we have connection with Canada. That was after the Second World War. And later on, they spread, the schools, the colleges spread all over the country. And we started also another university, a Catholic university in Asmara, Eritrea, which was part of Ethiopia at that time. Now we are starting with the help of the government and the International Catholic Church, a Catholic university in Addis Ababa.
Very good. Now, education is one thing that I think you're very passionate about, and you encourage and promote in your diocese and in the country. I remember that famous encyclical of Pope Paul VI, Populorum Progressio, where when he spoke about development, in particular the development in the developing world, he said the new name, essentially, the new name for peace is development, and a big part of that was education.
Yes.
What is it about education? Why is education so key in raising up a society?
Well, education is very important because it helps you fight ignorance. It helps you fight diseases, and it broadens your vision from, say, a particular ethnic vision to a national vision, and then to an international vision. And with education, you help the person also not to help him improve his intellectual capacity, but with the Catholic education system, we take the whole person. So he is educated spiritually, socially, emotionally, and developing his social relations. So education is very, very important to get out of poverty, to improve yourself, and to know who you are also, and to have this spiritual dimension of yourself in relation with God, and also in relation to your brother and sister.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned the complexity of Ethiopian society. There's many different people, many different faiths all living together. And here we are at the Synod of Bishops on the family, where the entire world, bishops from around the world, are coming to speak about the pastoral challenges, but also the vocation and the mission of family life. And people, especially in the Western world, we tend to think of there's the Western world, there's the European perspective, there's the Latin American perspective, and then there's the African perspective and the Asian perspective. But as you know, the African perspective is very complex as well. Africa
Yes.
is not one big country, it's many different entities. So when we think about Africa being present at a Synod of Bishops like this, what does that mean? What are all the different elements at play?
Well, Africa is very important. When the Holy Family was persecuted in Bethlehem, they came as refugees to Egypt. Mm-hmm. And they stayed there until the person who was persecuting them died, so they could go back to Nazareth. We have a tradition which says that since they were staying in Egypt and Egypt was so hot, they came down to Ethiopia, to the mountains, highland, to get some fresh air. And Jesus gave Ethiopia as a gift to Our Lady. So Ethiopia is a gift to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Ethiopia, we call that Asrata Mariam. But Africa is big. You see, now I spoke to you about Egypt, long history on its own, the Egyptian civilization. Then you had the Nubia civilization in northern Sudan area, which was considered at that time part of Ethiopia also. And everything below Egypt was more or less Ethiopia at that time. And the present Ethiopia also, very old history. And then you go to West Africa. West Africa, like the Mali Empire, the Ashanti kingdoms of Egypt, that's also great civilizations going on there. And then you have in Central and Southern Africa, like Zimbabwe and so on, and South Africa. Africa is a big continent. It's a big continent with a variety of people. Well, if I go to Canada, to Toronto, and I meet somebody there, and who knows, say, a great African player like in Cameroon, Roger Miller, and I am in Ethiopia, he could say to me, well, when you go to Africa, greet Roger Miller for me. You know, as if it is one country, one village, you know.
Right.
Ethiopia and Cameroon is West and East Africa, very, very far, you know, at least 4 or 5 hours by plane. And so Africa is a huge, huge continent. And in fact, a very important one. And when Pope Benedict came to visit us, and he visited Benin and Angola, I went to Benin to receive him, and he was delighted to see the African people. We were there in a big stadium, you know, Mass, and he was seeing the African people. He liked that, and he said, you know, Africa, you are the spiritual lung of the world. You know, because you have values, you have traditional values, keep them. Keep these values. The value you have for life, the value you have for human beings, the value you have for hospitality, keep them. Don't change them with cheap ones, being imposed from mostly outside, you know. And so during the Synod, you know, I think the Synod Fathers see also Africa as a country with great love for life and respect for life, and to stand for life. And the family is the center, the core of human life. And that is why Africans give so much importance to the family. So whenever we speak about our family, we don't speak about the nucleus family, father and mother and brother and sisters, but we have the extended family, the whole village. The whole village is your family, and you grow up by the support of the whole village.
You mentioned the apostolic visit of Pope Benedict to Africa, which was definitely a memorable one, and just in a few short weeks, Pope Francis will be coming back to Africa as Pope Benedict's successor. What are the African people expecting from Pope Francis, and how are they going to welcome him?
He will be welcomed. You know, I am the chairman of what we call AMASEA, Association of Member Episcopal Conferences of Eastern Africa, comprising of 11 African countries. From the south, Malawi, Zambia, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and even Djibouti and Somalia are affiliated members of this big association. And we just had our regional meeting, and where we were also told that the Pope is coming. Oh, we said he's welcomed. I always tell the Roman Catholics here, if you don't want Pope Francis here in Rome, we can have him in Africa. No, we love him here, we don't touch him. But let him come to Africa, and he will be most welcomed. He's going to visit Kenya and Uganda. I will be there as a member of the conference in this regional area, and he's going to visit not only the peaceful countries of Kenya and Uganda, but he's also to visit Central African Republic, where there have been so much conflicts, so many displaced people, so much suffering, and that is also what Africa wants to share with the rest of the world. That we have so many challenges. Poverty is one issue, disease is one issue, violence against people is another issue. You might have heard, for example, of the Democratic Republic of Congo, one of the richest countries in the world. And because it is a rich country, everybody wants to go there and to take a piece of the cake there, and we have always conflicts there. And so much so that the people who were living peacefully in the villages are now displaced and they are living in the forest. You know who is living with them? Who is living with them are missionary sisters and local sisters, local priests, bishops, who go together with them to live in the forest, while the others come to take the resources, like what is called, for example, not these big minerals like diamonds or uranium, but like coltan, which is used for communications, mobile industry, and so on. You see, so the Africa has its own priorities. So, for example, issues of same-sex union and all these things are non-issues for us. We have first to live, to protect the values we have, and to stand with the people who are suffering. And so much so also, all those who are migrating are mostly from Africa also.
Right.
Those who go from, say, these certain regions from northeastern Africa to Libya and want to go to Europe, and who die in the Mediterranean Sea. Mm-hmm. So when Pope Francis comes there, we will accept him and we will tell him the reality of the African people. And since he is with the marginalized, with the people who suffer, he's going to be the voice of Africa, I think.
Okay. One final question for you, because you mentioned the refugee crisis, and this is something that the entire world has to pay attention to. Pope Francis has spoken about it. It's something affecting so many different people. What do you see as the solution to the refugee crisis that's affecting Africa and the Middle East at this time?
First, we pray. Really, this is a situation where we see so much suffering that it has touched the conscience of the world. Whatever the causes are, inhuman suffering is going on. Europe and in Canada, they opened their eyes when the body of a child came over the sea to the shore. And the father claiming the son. I think humankind, we feel at this stage, must be able to have a conscience for suffering humanity. So the sources, the causes have to be really studied, and to find solutions on the spot, whether it is in Africa, within Africa, as I mentioned to you, that even if Africa is a rich continent with minerals, the resources are African. Those people who own the resources have to be respected. And also to share, if necessary, with others, but with under international law. The same like Syria. Syria also, I would say, the causes are in Syria, and to have the peace there so that people will not be seen as burden when they flee from difficult situations. For example, Ethiopia has nearly, more than 600 refugees. Just Ethiopia itself. It has many Somali refugees, many Sudanese refugees from southern Sudan, and many refugees from Eritrea also. So if such a country, a poor country, is taking care of so many refugees and migrants, why can't Europe and why can't Canada take care of more? This is an appeal, in fact. This is my appeal as an African to the world.
Your Eminence, thank you very much for taking time to speak to us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.